may be seated. Shabbat Shalom. We, as I said, have a triple header. We have triple Sifrei Torah. We have triple Smachot, happy occasions. The Parsha this week is Parashat Trumah. It is the Parsha that discusses building a sanctuary, building a space for God. And of course, there is a question here. If God is everywhere, why do we even need a space for God? And in essence, of course, you can't build a space for God. If God is limitless and beyond our three-dimensional world, resting in places that we can't fathom, how can we then contain God into a space and, in essence, limit God? The answer is that, first of all, God does not inhabit buildings. God is in a much deeper place, fundamentally, right? The Torah says, "Vasuli mishkan v'shachanti b'tocham." You'll build a building, but don't forget that where I'm going to dwell is in and within each and every person, every human being. The Torah still asks, or the rabbis still ask, but why the need for a sanctuary? And the rabbis look and say, well, there's going to be a golden calf episode that we'll read about in 2 weeks' time. And so therefore, we have an awareness that physical creatures, us human beings, still need spaces. And we still need symbols. And we need things to put on our bodies to remember that we're connected to holiness, the talit, for example. And they think about the sin of the golden calf and they remind themselves, we're going to need some kind of holy space. And God says this word that kind of bridges both senses. V'shachanti b'tocham. Vishkon is to dwell, and it means closeness. In modern Hebrew, shchenim are your neighbors, the people who live close to you. And so God's presence is on some level felt a little bit more deeply in a place where we're concentrated on an experience, on coming together, on experiencing joy, and sometimes even sadness. The Torah then talks about in so many places the sense of God's presence. But this is the first time it uses that root, shin, chaf, nun, right? To dwell, to really be embedded in a place. And it reminds us about how we can experience God, right? There are big moments, as we just read about a couple of weeks ago, the 10 Commandments. And there are peak moments in your life, like having a new baby or getting married. These are moments you're going to remember. Standing at the top of Masada, watching the sunrise. These are peak moments. And so the question is, but how will we also experience God in the in-between moments? What's the secret to getting there? And Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who again I quote in honor and in memory of our beloved Mike Rosenberg, we love to quote Rabbi Sachs. Rabbi Sachs says that the secret of this ability to connect with God comes from the beginning of the Parsha, the Torah reading, where it says that we should bring a trumah, a contribution, right? We should bring a contribution to the Mishkan, to what will be our sacred space. And take that trumah and give kol asher yidvenu libo as your heart is moved. And so that we learn that there is this very active giving, right, that in essence reminds us about blessing and what we are to receive. And Rabbi Sachs says that there's deep meaning in being given something. When you're given something, when you're given love, when you're given support, when you're given kindness, there's also a reminder that there's a giver. And all of us have been given life from whoever sustained us. We come from an act of love. And so the tradition says the entire universe comes from an act of love, and that there must be a giver that lies beyond and behind the universe. Rabbi Sachs then brings it all together by saying that this is how God, quote, came to be close to the Israelites through the building of the sacred space. It wasn't all the details, which of course we read about, because details are important. You can't build buildings without blueprints and all kinds of things that I would love to understand more about. You need that. But it wasn't just the quality of all the materials and the clothing that the high priest would wear. It was, in fact, that they gave the gifts of their heart, how they were moved to give. Because when you give voluntarily to someone else, to a person, to a project, to a holy cause, to tzedakah, to helping those in need, that's where the divine presence rests. And so we have this word for this parsha, for this Torah reading, truma. And of course, on some level, it's a simple word, right? To give. A truma is a donation. But of course, if you look at the root of the word, litrom, right? Laharim, to lift up. You can see, this subtle other idea. When you are making a donation, you are in fact lifting it up. And when you lift up that act of giving, what does it do to you? It lifts you up. And so that kindness, that giving sense that can come in so many places is in fact through the act of giving. It can be financial, it can be support, it can be simply your presence in times of need, in times of loss, and in times of great joy. The best way of lifting yourself up to the greatest spiritual heights is to live in a state of gratitude and giving for the fact that we have been given. And then how do we bring that out into the world? God doesn't live in a building, right? God lives in the hearts of all of us who give. Shabbat Shalom.